It's NFL tier list time. Today we're doing teams, and it's time to find out, are you a playoff contender, Super Bowl contender, or are you just trash? The first team up is going to be the controversial Arizona Cardinals. As we all know today, they just released DeAndre Hopkins. I think he's probably going to the Chiefs, but that's a discussion for another day. While Kyler Murray is inactive, he's going to be out for probably like 12-ish weeks. They're going to have a really, really hard time winning games. Even when he's back, they may just tank and not even want to win anymore. They may want to get the first overall draft pick. So we're going to put them in F. Next to them, the CJ Stroud-led Texans. Now, the Texans had a pretty good draft, solid. They rebuilt a little bit, but they're like 2 to 3 to maybe even more years away from like a true, fully rebuilt team where they're actually contending for something special. I think like 5 to 6 wins is pretty optimistic this year. I think like 4 to 5 is kind of the range of outcomes. Then we got the Baker Mayfield-led Buccaneers. I see like a similar air-out type of offense to when they had Jameis Winston. Not to the same extent where they're going to throw 5,000 yards, 30 picks. But I think with Godwin, Evans, Cade Otton, Rashad White's a solid receiving back. Even Russell Gage, they have a decent amount of weapons. I saw a clip of Baker in training camp missing wide-open receivers, so that kind of worries me. But I think they're going to just say fuck it and chuck it, and we like that. So the defense is okay, but I think it's going to be F. We like it for fantasy is what I meant. The Titans, I'm going to go with E. At least they have a slight identity. They know they want to run the ball with Derrick Henry. Hopefully they don't trade him for their own sake because they have absolutely no hope to do anything without Derrick Henry. The defense is okay. The offensive line kind of a little bit upgraded, but the quarterback situation, are we going to see Willis at all? Probably not. It's probably going to be Tannehill for the start, then Levis near the mid to end of the year, depending on like how Tannehill does. I'm not too excited for Chigakonkwu or Treylon Burks, but I think this team's like meh. It just all hinges on Derrick Henry. They're going to be annoying to play. Mike Vrabel, great coach, annoying to play team. Now, the Bears are E tier for me as well. They were the worst team in the league last year from a record standpoint. I think Justin Fields, with the addition of DJ Moore, will improve a little bit as a passer. Still, he's going to be a great rusher. I think there's a stat, 28% of Justin Fields' dropbacks don't even like result in a throw, meaning it's either a sack or he scrambles or whatever it is. Like, a record amount of dropbacks that aren't resulting in a throw is really bad, but that also proves he has some upside if he can figure that out. He just needs to become a quicker decision maker. The Panthers are next. I'm also putting them in E tier. I think it's like a slightly better situation than the Texans. Adam Thielen, Hayden Hurst. Mingo is the guy they really, really wanted at receiver in the draft. They got him. So it's kind of friendly for a new quarterback like Bryce Young. The defense is fairly solid as well with guys like Brian Burns and J.C. Horn, almost J.C. Jackson, J.C. Horn anchoring it down back there on defense. So it's an okay team, but they're a couple years away from being an actual contender as well. Then the Washington Commanders are also E tier, and honestly, they would be F tier if their defense wasn't so sick. Their DBs, Cam Curl, Fuller, their defensive line, Payne, Allen, Chase. Like, they're just stacked on defense. That's the only thing kind of holding them in this E tier. But offense with Sam Howell, I think, is going to be pretty bad. I think Antonio Gibson makes a bounce back because I'm not a fan of Brian Robinson. I think Brian Robinson is, like, just not explosive at all. You know, older running back coming into the league anyways out of Alabama. Was not a big fan. I think Antonio Gibson, even with fumbling issues, should be better. The receiving core is okay, but not a fan of Sam Howell. So the Saints are in my D tier. Last year I was super excited for Jameis Winston, Olave, Michael Thomas, and that defense on paper looked great. The defense looked bad at the start. They kind of followed up later in the year and improved a lot. It became like a top 7-ish defense. So hopefully that continues into this year. The main issue is Derek Carr isn't really like a team elevator. He's definitely going to be better than Winston and Andy Dalton and whoever else played last year for them. But I don't know. That's kind of where I have him now. I think Michael Thomas, I love him, but when I watched him on film a little bit last year, looked kind of slow. He looks a little bit like a tight end out there. But it's the Saints. They'll figure out ways to score points and play solid defense, but they'll probably win the division, but I don't see any upside really. The Falcons also I put in, actually I'm going to put the Falcons in, I'll put them in D tier. I think they can get like 6 to 8 wins depending on how they play. I think they have an identity clearly. They have a great O-line with a great running back in Bijan Robinson. They drafted with the 8th overall pick. He's going to be solid, really studly in fantasy, but as we know with Mariota last year, they only passed 23 times per game. That's really not how you win in the NFL anymore. So Pitts and London are going to be tearing their damn hair out because they will not be touching the ball with Desmond Ridder as well. I don't think Ridder is like an upgrade at all over Mariota. I think it's pretty lateral movement. A lot of people like to say he's better and that Pitts is going to thrive. I don't see it at all. It's even too much target competition just by having Bijan and Drake London there, honestly. They just will not throw the ball enough. So The offense will be okay. They'll run the ball well, but the defense, it's the Falcons. It's. Colts also D tier. They have identity as well. JT and Anthony Richardson will be running the ball like 500 combined times this year. It's going to be crazy. Defense, pretty solid as well. In a fairly easy division outside of the Jags, so I could see them like pulling off some weird upsets here and there, but really no upside. Patriots, the same case. Solid running team. Ramondre is going to get like the bulk of the work again this year. A lot of receptions for him as well. Mac Jones has no weapons again, as usual. Poor guy, just getting chucked out there. He's not a good QB to begin with. Then he gets no weapons. I mean, it's a recipe for disaster. The defense will be insane, though. Judon will do his thing. They got Christian Gonzalez in the draft. He'll be great. Another team that plays tough, hard-nosed defense and sucks on offense. So 8-ish wins. Rams, I have a little bit of faith in to bounce back. Cooper Kupp and Stafford were injured. Stafford was injured like all last year. The O-line was awful last year. I think that's got to improve. Kupp is still top 3 in the NFL as a receiver. Last year, he didn't look like he took any steps down. He was on pace for like 1,650 yards and like 16 touchdowns or no, I think it's 12 touchdowns. Very, very good season again. So I'm fine with the Rams. I think they have a little bit of bounce back season. They still got Donald. They did lose Ramsey, but I'm fine with them. Raiders are in a similar boat as they were last year, like 6 to 7 wins again. Derek Carr going to the Saints, now Jimmy G, pretty much a lateral movement. I guess it eliminates a little bit of the deep ball. But Adams doesn't really want to be there, as he made clear, like he doesn't want to be part of a rebuild. And while I don't think they're in a rebuild stage right now, they're just in a bad stage right now. The defense is never good for the Raiders, and I don't think that's going to change. So we'll see, but I'm keeping them in D tier. We don't need to talk too much about the Raiders. The first team in the C tier is going to be the Steelers. Great defense with Minkah, Fitzpatrick, and TJ Watt. I'm excited to see what they can do in a full, healthy season. And then the offense got better. The offensive line, they got like 4 new pieces throughout the draft and free agency. So I'm excited for that, as well as Najee Harris may take some efficiency steps up as that offensive line gets better. Pickens needs to develop as a route runner. He looked good in contested catches and everything, makes the spec catches all the time, but his route running needs improvement. Deontay Johnson's interesting. They will just feed him targets into oblivion. I think he had like 150 targets last year, 0 touchdowns. I don't know how you do that, but Kenny Pickett needs to play better. He has a little bit of rushing upside, but as a pure pocket passer, we need more from him. They got Allen Robinson, who looked like a complete dustball last year, but hopefully he improves a little bit. But the Steelers should be like a 9-ish win team. The Packers are in the same boat for me. I think I have like optimism for them, just because everything's kind of new. Christian Watson, Dubs, and now Reed in the draft, a new slot receiver in the second round. It should be a decent trio out there. New 2 tight ends, Luke Musgrave, and I forget the second one that we got in the draft. I'm a Packers fan. 2 tight ends in the draft. It's going to be very new for everybody. Jordan Love looked good for the little bit that he started last year. The Packers defense on paper always looks great, but our defensive coordinator is a complete nutcase, and like just he plays very, very passive defense, and I hate it. Like on 3rd and 6, he'll play like just deep zone and let you get the first down. It's brutal to watch, but the defense on paper, talent-wise, is very good, so I could see them getting like 8 to 9 wins. The Browns, I could see with a little more upside. They have a similar downside, but a little more upside with Deshaun Watson, because if he does come back to normal Deshaun Watson form, this team could have like 12 wins. Nick Chubb behind that O-line with no Kareem Hunt, I hope they feed him like 325 carries this year. Let him get like 1,800 yards, 15 plus touchdowns, be a Derrick Henry for a year. He's the most efficient running back ever, only behind Jamal Charles, averaging 5.2 yards per carry. Jamal averaged 5.4, so I think he's going to thrive. Defense is solid, obviously, with Garrett, so yeah, and then they get Elijah Moore to pair up with Amari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones, as well as Cedric Tillman in the draft, so they have a pretty decent wide receiver core. Maybe they get DeAndre Hopkins to pair up with Deshaun again. I kind of doubt that, but we can see. It's a solid team. Roster usually always good with the Browns. They just fall through in other ways. Then Denver, the real bounce-back candidate of the year for me. Last year I predicted Detroit. This year I'm predicting the Denver Broncos when no one else is in on it. We saw what Sean Payton was able to do with the Saints when Drew Brees had a noodle arm. Smaller quarterback, weaker arm at the time. It made him look like a stud. Wilson still has an arm, but he's having accuracy issues over the middle, and I'm sure Payton's going to be able to turn that around. He has a history with a small quarterback, obviously, and he's a top 5 mastermind from the offensive side of the field. The Denver Broncos defense needs no help. Top 3, Surtain's a demon. Like, they are totally fine back there, so it's really on Russ. Judy's going to be back, it looks like. Sutton may be back. He still potentially gets traded, but St. Patrick's back off the ACL. They draft Mims, who looks fairly solid. Dolchich is back. So they got a lot of weapons. The O-line's okay. Javonte looks like he's making pretty quick progress, so I am excited to see what the Broncos can do. Then we got the Giants. Brian Daboll obviously leads them to a positive season in the playoffs. Brian Daboll deserves half that Daniel Jones money because he literally turned his career around. Same thing he did for Josh Allen, he did with Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is much worse. We're going to see a lot of those bootleg touchdowns again this year from Danny Dimes. They're probably going to end up with like 9-ish wins again, 8 to 9 to maybe 10. Isaiah Hodgins, I believe is his name. He looked really good as a wide receiver one last year towards the end in like the last 5 weeks. I hope he is still on that pace again because he's a fun guy to draft in the late rounds of fantasy. Then we got Darren Waller coming over. He should be absolutely massive for this team. Opens up a lot over the middle. Hopefully he gives them some athleticism and that he's not just another slot guy they have there. So looking forward to that. Defense solid as usual. Then we get the Lions, and this is my team that I predicted last year back in March would have a great offense and a terrible defense. This year I'm kind of hopping off the wagon. Terrible defense still. They did not draft a defender in the early picks like Devin Witherspoon that I thought. They did get Jack Campbell, a linebacker, but I really wanted a cornerback because they seriously struggled back there. They got Jahmyr Gibbs when they didn't really need it. They could have probably tried to patch things over with DeAndre Swift, who I don't think is amazing, but he kind of fit what Jamal Williams couldn't do. Same thing with like Dave Montgomery. He's the bell cow now, and then Jahmyr Gibbs is kind of gonna spell some opportunities in the receiving game. Offensive line still great. Amon-Ra still great. Jameson Williams suspended 6 games, but I do think the offense will regress a little bit. Goff had 4,400 yards, 29 touchdowns, 7 picks. I don't see that again. That's a little bit too perfect for him. Defense is still trash, so I see like 8 to 9-ish wins. A lot of people think they're like a sneaky Super Bowl contender. I do not. The first team in the B category, the Dallas Cowboys. Solid defense, amazing defense. Going to generate a lot of turnovers as usual. Great O-line, great receiving core. Now with Michael Gallup, a full year removed from the ACL. We love in receivers and running backs all removed for a full year. They tend to struggle that first year back because it's very sore, very tight, always swollen. He said he was struggling last year, and this year he already feels like pretty much perfect. So love him back. Brandon Cooks joining the fray. I think he can put up 1,000 yards easy. This team hopefully will keep throwing the ball a decent amount. Switch an offensive coordinator, which is going to be a little bit more run heavy. Mike McCarthy's going to call the plays, and you know that man wants to run the ball. But I don't think when you have Tony Pollard, you can do that. So Tony Pollard will be good. Very efficient, great running back, but I don't think you can give him 300 carries in a season. No way. So I think they signed Fournette or Zeke for a cheap deal, give them some of the carries, and hopefully CeeDee Lamb has a baller season as well. Dak's been getting hated on a lot, but I see some upside for the Cowboys. The Chargers are the same situation where it's kind of like they always disappoint at the very end. They have always had the slowest receiver core. Now they get Quentin Johnston to help out with the speed there. I like that, but he's more of a yards after catch guy that plays under the middle. I want to see him go deep for the team because God knows Mike Williams will just hurt himself going deep all the time, making those crazy catches, laying on his neck and being out for the next 5 games. And then Keenan is definitely just a slot receiver now. He's too old. He can't go that far down the field. So he's a slot guy. They need Justin to uncork that cannon downfield, you know? Defense overrated as usual. They always have studs in that defense, and somehow it's never good. It's always like average to bad. So I think they're in this B tier. The Jaguars, I love the addition of Calvin Ridley. I could see 1,400 yards. He's a demon down the field, insane route runner down the field. If you look back at his stats from years ago, he always had the best air yards and just yards per target and stuff like that. Like he was always the best in the league down the field. Pair that up with Trevor Lawrence, who had to dink and dunk his ass off last year with Etienne, Kirk, Ingram. Love the fit there. Zay Jones, Trevor Lawrence made look good last year. I can only imagine what he does with Calvin Ridley. Okay, then the defense, fine. That's why I have them B tier. I don't think the defense is like anything crazy, so I don't think they'll be going to the Super Bowl anytime soon. Then we got the Miami Dolphins, who are like a similar kind of case. They get Jalen Ramsey, but I'm still not like uber confident in the defense. They do have Tyreek Hill and Waddle, the Legion of Zoom. It's the best wide receiver duo in the league. But if one of those guys gets hurt, it's over because they have like Braxton Berrios, Durham Smythe at tight end, a ton of running backs. They may even get Dalvin Cook. They've been linked a lot to Dalvin Cook in trades, which would be huge for them. But they'll be a solid team. I see like 10 to 11 wins maybe, like 9. I'd say 9 to 11 there. Vikings are the definition. They're like a little bit more amped up Lions. Crap defense, great offense. Hawkinson stepped up last year, became a top 5-ish tight end. And then we got Jordan Addison in the draft. Then you got Jefferson, a top 3 receiver in the league, obviously. O-line, Christian Darrisaw looked good last year. Kirk is very underrated. I think he's going to be great, again, as usual. But the problem is, Last year they were 11-0 in games that were decided by one possession. The year before, I don't know what the record was, but I know a lot of the games were like shootouts where it was like 30-28, a lot of them. That's going to be the same thing this year. They're not going to go 11-0. They're not going to have 13 wins this year. They're going to be like a 10-ish win team, a lot of close games, not a good defense, losing the first round of playoffs. It's kind of how they work at this point. They need a better defense. The Seattle Seahawks, though, I think are a more well-rounded team. They got one of the best wide receiver trios in the game, one of the best running back duos, a solid O-line, a quarterback who has MVP potential, I'll say. Like, he's going to get like maybe 45 to 4,800 yards, maybe like 30 to 35 touchdowns. That would be crazy for him, but I think he could do it with Jackson Smith and Jigba now, Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf. It looks good. I'm excited for this defense as well. They're kind of reconstructing that Legion of Boom with Tariq Woolen and Devin Witherspoon, who they drafted in the first round. So I'm excited to see what the Seahawks do. I have them in my top 10 teams. Then we got the Baltimore Ravens with Lamar Jackson going to be passing more. They got Todd Monken as the offensive coordinator. Now they have Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman, Odell Beckham Jr., Mark Andrews, a lot of guys on the offense that can catch balls in various degrees of the field. A lot of deep threats, a lot of slot guys, a lot of route runners, so they got everything covered. I'm excited to see what the Ravens can do now that they're going to be passing more and helping Lamar out a little more. Their defense, though, needs to stay healthy, especially those DBs, because every year they get hurt, and every year they just disappoint. So health is the main thing for the Ravens. Our first team in A tier, Rodgers going to the Jets. We love to see it. I'm a Packers fan, and now he finally gets a place that seems like it's a real Super Bowl caliber roster. Garrett Wilson's a A1 receiver in this league. I would not be surprised if he ends with like 14, 1,500 yards, 12 plus touchdowns, getting a lot of those like short dump offs near the goal line that, why am I forgetting the head coach's name there now? Hackett, Nathaniel Hackett. He was Rodgers' offensive coordinator back with the Packers when they had Devontae getting like 18 touchdowns that one season. They're going to do a lot of those similar screenplays near the goal line, get Garrett Wilson open. I think he has a baller year. Conklin, Lazard, Cobb, Corey Davis, Mecole Hardman. Pretty solid overall receiving core, I guess. So I think Rodgers does well in the defense, obviously top 3 to 5-ish, like they'll be great. The Buffalo Bills, I'm keeping the A tier. I said last year they would not have a chance at the Super Bowl. I was right on that. I said the Chiefs would win it even before the season. You can check the videos on this channel. The Bills just don't have it. They have a great defense until the playoffs. It always seems to fall apart. And then the offense is just way too like Josh Allen centric. They have no run game. It's only Stephon Diggs. I've always said Gabe Davis very overrated. He can do one thing well, and that's run streaks. And then Dawson Knox was fine. Now they get Kincaid, which is an upgrade. They get Damian Harris, which is an upgrade. But I still think it's just a little bit too much on Josh Allen. I don't see. It's like they're missing a piece or two. Things just don't seem to click when it gets to playoff time. Then we got the Eagles in S tier. The NFC is easy this year. NFC's easy. The Eagles' D-line got even better in the draft. Nolan Smith, they got like 15 picks after ADP. Jalen Carter, they got late as well, pick 8 or 9, so like way after he was supposed to go. He was arguably the best player in the draft. So the Eagles, of course, do Eagles things and win the draft. I do like the addition of Swift and Penny, especially on like they're paying them nothing, literally nothing. So it's like just great running. Like Penny's one of the most talented running backs in the league. He just has a lot of injuries. O-line, they kept everybody, so it's going to be great. Jalen Hurts should have another MVP caliber year. Great receivers, great tight end. Defense again. They got both their cornerbacks to stay, Bradbury and Slay. They lost CJ Gardner Johnson, so that does hurt, but they'll be fine. Chiefs, best team in the league. We don't really need to say too much. I think they're going to probably get DeAndre Hopkins and be the best team again. The Bengals, I'm torn between A and S. I'm really torn. I'll lean S just because I do see them playing in the championship game versus the Chiefs, and maybe things break right and they go to the Super Bowl. The O-line's still not great. Looks like Joe Mixon's going to stay. Amazing wide receiver trio plus Joe Burrow. Obviously, the defense is going to be fine again. It just comes down to, can they beat Mahomes? That is literally that is the entire emphasis on their entire season. Can they beat Mahomes? That's it. They'll make the playoffs. They'll have a deep run. Can they beat Mahomes? I don't know if they can. I'll keep them in S tier, but that's how it goes. Then the last team is the San Francisco 49ers. In my opinion, I made a video on this, the most disappointing team over the last 5 years. Every single year, they have the best roster in the NFL that could easily win a Super Bowl, but the quarterback position seems to fall apart. It went from Jimmy G underthrowing Emmanuel Sanders in the Super Bowl to Jaquiski Tartt dropping a wide-open interception against the Rams that would probably send them to the Super Bowl. Then Brock Purdy and Josh Johnson both go down in the same game. They have no quarterback to do anything. I mean, this roster's too good. Defense is top 3. O-line is decent, but Trent Williams is insane. The receiving core is crazy. George Kittle is, in my opinion, the most talented tight end in the league. Like, if Brock Purdy can play the full season, they have a very, very good shot at going to the Super Bowl. So this is the official tier list, guys. I appreciate you tuning in. Make sure you guys drop a follow. We've gotten this channel up to 31.5K from just YouTube Shorts, so I want to do long-form content. So if you guys like this, comment, sub from this video, I'll know you guys really appreciate the long-form content, and I'll do more of it. So thank you all for tuning in, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. I'll probably do another like wide receiver tier list or some other position. So I'll catch you guys then. Peace.